Oh yeah, I mean, how many? I don't think there's too many companies out there in the collectibles world where the owner is actually sitting there sculpting things and working on paint and working with the employees on actually making stuff. It's pretty cool.
Hello and welcome to the Collecting Heroes podcast. I'm your host JD, the collector of collectors, and this is the place where I interview pop culture collectors from around the world. Today, I'm going to Montreal for my next guest, and we're kind of learning how the sausage is made a little bit, or should I say how the statue is made, with my next guest. His name is Dan Richard, and he works for PureArts Studio. Dan, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. When I got your invite, come and talk about collecting and collectibles, I was like, let's do it.
And I was excited because we've been chatting a little bit before I started recording. Obviously, I'm a massive Batman fan, and I came across that Michael Keaton cowl that you guys put out, which we'll definitely talk about later. So that's how I came to find you guys. But for people who don't know about PureArts, give us a little bit of the history and where did it come from?
Yeah, PureArts is kind of I feel like it's a bit of a sleeper company because people in general might think that we're quite new. We've only been around for a few years, but we've actually been behind the scenes manufacturing for well over 13 or 14 years. So we manufactured for people like Riot, Ubisoft, and a bunch of other gaming studios. So pretty much all of their collector edition video games, a lot of their merch, it's all been manufactured by us. And you can tell there's the little PureArts stamp on the bottom that a lot of people don't know about. And then about 4 years ago, the powers that be decided that it would be time to maybe start selling direct. So that's why we created a licensing department and created PureArts.com. They established the Montreal office and we hired an e-commerce team, and that's kind of how it came to be. So we went from now we still do the manufacturing, but now we also do the direct to consumer. So we really do everything A to Z. And we also don't third party our manufacturing. We manufacture right in house. So we have our own manufacturing factory in China that makes our stuff. So we have our own employees and our own facilities and the whole 9 yards.
Amazing. And so that's 2008 was when it was founded. And when you say the powers that be, are you talking about Hugues Martel?
Yeah, this would be Mr. Hugues, and as well as his, I guess not his partner, but his business associate, Arnaud, at the time. He was working in China as well with Hugues. And of course, Hugues is originally from Montreal, and he moved to China many, many years ago to run the business. And so they decided together to go ahead and start PureArts.com. Arnaud moved to Montreal, came to Canada, and established the office and started hiring some people, and kind of just took off from there.
And you mentioned that he's an artist himself, which I think probably was part of the reason for the inspiration, right?
And that is one thing that is, yeah, it's so amazing to work with Hugues because he's not just a business guy. He's also an accomplished artist, a formerly trained artist who has been doing artwork for, 35 years. He does a lot of his own sculptures, and he will often get involved directly in the sculpting and painting of our collectibles. He's worked on prototypes. He's built giant sculptures. We once made a life-size dragon for a game show where people could climb on the dragon, and we have photos of Hugues up there sculpting it in the clay and everything. So yeah, he's a very, very accomplished artist. So it's cool to get both the businessman and the artist as the owner, so he understands both sides.
Can that also be like a little hazardous when you're an artist working in the sculpt studio and you've got Hugo over the back, like coming over trying to maybe like, hey, like, I'll just update that. Like, is he fairly hands off at sometimes, or how does that work?
Depends. I think it depends. So, I mean, he can't do everything at once. There's so much going on. It's impossible for him to see everything at once. So at some point, he's got to trust people, right? But he will visit the factory floor, go check on production. He will also often go when everything is in its final packaging stages. He'll go to the factory and go and check out how everything's going. He'll look at the paint and the packaging, make sure everything is good. QC is working well. So yeah, he definitely will get involved when need be, or if, let's say, we've got some challenges with materials or things like that, he'll get involved. So I guess he sort of just wears a lot of hats, and he runs around and takes care of whatever fires need to be taken care of, plus also make sure that we pay the bills.
A busy man.
He's incredibly busy. The work schedule in China is just a completely different story. Here in North America, we're used to working our 9 to 5, and obviously because we work in the retail space, we have to work weekends as well and do shows and things like that. But in China, I get calls from their people at 1, 2 in the morning, and there's 1 or 2 in the morning their time, and they're working. So it's
Oh, wow.
I mean it's incredible. They do also get a lot of vacation. There seems to be a lot of national holidays in China. I don't know what the story is with that. So they do get a lot of time off, but they do work extremely hard, and it's not easy. It's not easy, that's for sure.
Well, if you're working that hard, you'd hope that you eventually get some sort of holiday in between.
Well, yeah, absolutely. They also work on, I believe it's Saturday. I think they only get Sundays off, so they actually work on Saturdays as well. So it's they work very, very hard, and it can be very frustrating because in China there's a lot of challenges in terms. We've all been hearing during the pandemic that there's a lot of supply chain issues, right? Dealing with supply chain.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, and dealing with containers and all that sort of thing. Well, it's the team in China that deals with that, so they get all those frustrations. I just sit at my desk back here in Canada and just twiddle my thumbs and wait for containers to arrive with my goodies. It's a lot easier for me. They have to deal with all these stresses. In terms of the supply chain, it has been a challenge. It's getting better. The pricing on containers has come down. It is getting easier to acquire materials, but at one point it was an absolute nightmare. We couldn't get certain pieces of material to finish, any kind of statue that had, a dress or some other type of synthetics in there. We had issues getting certain types of resins in. It was, at one point it was a bit of a nightmare. It seems to be getting easier now. Now what we're seeing though is definitely there's a cooling period going on right now in terms of the collectibles industry, in terms of people purchasing. So now it's like, okay, so now how do we make collectibles that are budget conscious so that collectors can still acquire them and we don't, absolutely destroy everyone with the prices. So that's kind of the challenge now at this point.
Well, definitely. That's that's a great segue into learning about, how in an economy as we're in now, when people are trying to tighten up their budgets, how do you stand out against other manufacturers when you're producing and marketing these products?
It's definitely a huge challenge. This is really not easy. I mean, one of the big advantages is that because we have our own in-house production facility, we have much better control on costs. So that helps us. So we're not, what's happening with a lot of third-party studios or a lot of third-party manufacturers is they're boosting up their prices like crazy. Yeah. And so let's say you're a third-party sell. Let's say you're company XYZ and you sell and make collectibles. You might have to charge a significant amount more than you did 3 years ago because the third party that you're using has doubled or tripled their prices. And then you've got your containers that have gone up 500%. So it's really, really tough. So we just try to keep control of our prices. We try to make smart decisions on how the packaging is done, how the materials are purchased, which materials we're using. Aside from that, all we can do is really reduce the numbers, make sure that we're producing, good quality statues. That's obviously super critical because if things don't pass the QC team and we have to start redoing things, then we really start taking it in the teeth. So that's something, you have to be very, very careful of. If you have a statue with a very high failure rate of, let's say, I don't know, you get something like 30%, you start entering the danger zone because now you've put yourself in a position where, okay, now I've got to replace all these statues and it just kills your margins. And right now, the struggle for a lot of companies is surviving. Companies are not getting rich making collectibles. A lot of people think that these high prices, we must be making a fortune. We're all driving our Ferraris to work, but it's definitely not like that at all. The margins are very, very tight, especially in distribution. When it comes to distribution to, especially in Europe and things like that, the discounts that they're looking for, the margin is crazy. They look for very deep discounts because it gets carried on. A distributor then sells it to a smaller distributor who then sells it to a mom and pop store. So by the time they've chewed into all that margin, there's very, very little to make. So that's why we have to be super careful about controlling costs. And by doing so, hopefully we can bring prices that make sense to people. But at the same time, you have to be realistic. If you're into quarter scale collectibles, you need to expect you're going to be paying about $1,000 for that quarter scale collectible in terms of a full statue. It's just the pricing that we're at. So a lot of people are saying, these used to cost $500, 5 years ago, and we're not there anymore. Unfortunately, it's just the way it is. It's the same thing with cars, boats, you name it. Any of these toys that people are buying, everything has gone up. It's really, really tough to keep those costs where they were 5-10 years ago. It's actually impossible.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And like, as I said to you before we started recording, it's not like they're Funko Pops, right? I mean, you got something like that, which is a collectible that is probably 50,000 of them done in a run, and they've got like
exactly.
a million IPs that they produce as well. So their markups and their volume turnover nets them that $1 billion valuation that they had. But I mean, they're still laying off people within their company as well. Like
they definitely took some hits. Yep.
Yeah. So no, I completely understand. Obviously, from a cost perspective, like, there is a cost to doing business. There is a cost to making pieces. And I think you also mentioned earlier, if someone wants to try and produce these on a 3D printer themselves, for $100, have at it.
I feel like I don't see these comments from collectors, but we obviously run ads on Facebook, and I'll often see comments from people saying, oh, I could make this for $100 on my 3D printer. And I've responded to them saying, if you do, please let us know. We'll buy them from you. You can manufacture for us, because it's it's ridiculous. Like we've got a quarter scale Lady D statue, Lady Dimitrescu from Resident Evil Village, and I mean, it's this huge, gorgeous statue with hand tailored dress and everything. I mean, if you're making that for $100, it's because you're working for 50 cents an hour, and nobody makes 50 cents an hour. So it's crazy. And then there's the development time and the development costs, the licensing fees, the minimum guarantees, the royalties. It's it all adds up. And that's the other big difference too, is a lot of people, when you think of, I'm a huge Predator collector, so I'm obsessed with Predator. And I remember, you used to be able to buy a Predator helmet made by a third party unlicensed for, I don't know, $250, $300. And then you would buy something, let's say Sideshow made, that was, $499, let's say. And people will be like, see, why is it so more expensive? Anybody can make these in their garage. It's like, yeah, but the people in the garage are not making licensed collectibles legally, So as soon as you get licensing involved and you're doing things the right way, it gets a heck of a lot more expensive.
And that was actually another question. So a great segue here. With that licensing, I guess that's almost like the dark arts of being a business, right? Is having those conversations with licensors, and there can be so many different departments that you may have to talk to for licensing in terms of
absolutely
the imagery, the music, all that stuff that goes into promotion and the manufacturer.
Well, and there's a great example of that. And you don't think of it initially, but then when you realize, when you work at it, it's like, okay, wow, this is crazy. So a great example, we did a Michael Jackson Smooth Criminal statue, which is absolutely a gorgeous, gorgeous statue. It's stunning. And people were saying, well, it should play music because it's a jukebox, but the jukebox doesn't actually play music. It's a sound reactive jukebox. So if you play music next to it, the lights all move with the sound and everything, but you could put a Bluetooth speaker in it, but it doesn't have like Michael Jackson music. So, and it also came with like a little replica of his original Smooth Criminal single and some other stuff. And what's crazy is that people don't realize is that there's 4 licenses involved just to make that statue. So if you want to do something that great, so you need the estate permit, you need the license to just call it anything Michael Jackson. You need the license for the likeness. You need the license, if you wanted to use the music, you need the license for the music, which is insanely expensive. Insanely expensive because Michael Jackson's label is owned by a studio. So you need the license from them. And then for the CD replica, you need the license for the artwork of the CD replica. It just goes on, and you have to pay a percentage to all of these people, and you have to pay royalties to all of these people. So you got to be careful because a statue cost can get quickly out of hand if you put this level of detail. But people don't generally, unless you work in the industry, you don't really realize that. Same thing with our Terminator products. We have a great line of Terminator products for Terminator 2, which we love doing them. And a lot of people, myself included, are asking for a battle damaged Arnie. And the thing is, if we do that, it doubles the cost of the statue because now we need the Terminator 2 license and we need Arnold's likeness, which literally doubles the cost of the license. So And we've always had pretty good price points on these. And if any of your listeners haven't seen this, you can go on purearts.com and check it out. They're basically full-scale art masks. So what it is, it's a full-scale bust, but you actually don't have the back of the head. It's like hollowed out for the most part. So it's really a front-facing piece. And it's because of that, we're able to shave quite a bit of pricing off of there. And they're resin, they're not like silicone masks with individually hair punch, except for a penguin, but that's a whole other story. And so we're able to offer these for, $500, whereas a bust these days will cost you $1,000, $1,200. So we try to keep those margins low to make these all very attainable. But if we start adding people likenesses and other things, it just sends the prices into the stratosphere, and then we get the backlash like, why is it so much more expensive than your T800 endoskeleton skull? Well, it's because you wanted it to look like Arnold. Guess what? You gotta pay unless you want it, or it'll look like Arnold's cousin,
So the Michael Jackson should come with a little disclaimer on the box that says, platinum selling signal not included.
Yeah. But it's a beautiful piece. The Michael Jackson, and it's interesting because different parts of the world have different levels of interest in Michael Jackson, and in Europe and in China they love him. So it sold extremely well. The deluxe sold out. We've got a couple of units that are left, but the deluxe, which is the one that includes the Michael Jackson statue and the jukebox, that sold out really, really quick. And now the only one we're pretty much selling now is the one without the jukebox, so kind of like the regular version. And it's a beautiful piece because all the clothing is real, and it's all hand tailored like a real suit. It's just done in this smaller scale. I believe it's 1/3 actually. Yeah, so it's a 1/3. So he has a full tailored suit. So a Smooth Criminal's suit is tailor made. Even his suspenders are elastic suspenders, like they're actually like legitimate suspenders. It's really neat. There's his silk shirt with the individual buttons. He's got the little crystals on the cufflinks. It's the little crystal cufflinks he's got for his shirt. The tie, which is really a tied tie. It's pretty impressive.
Well, I mean, from the King of Pop to the King of Action movies and Arnie, I mean, obviously that's such an expansive variant on the types of collectibles that you're making as well. When you actually started as a business, you mentioned obviously you were producing for places like Ubisoft and game manufacturers. How did they find you as well? Because I heard in another interview where you mentioned that it's not just you seeking out the licenses, but now you've come to a point where people are actually seeking you out to make some of their props and collectibles as well.
Absolutely. Well, I believe Hugues at the time had contacts in the gaming industry. So how he had those contacts, I'm not sure. But I know that somebody at Ubisoft is a good friend of his, and that I think that's how the conversation started. So what the roots are exactly, I'm not sure how they got into the manufacturing side. I don't stick my nose in the manufacturing side very much at all. In fact, it's interesting. The PureArts.com team don't know much about manufactured products because it's done completely siloed from us. So when we get contacted by somebody and says, hey, where do I get this product you manufactured? And they'll send us like a picture of it because I know something broke. All of us are kind of looking at each other going like, we have no idea what that is. Sorry. So it's kind of tough. Every once in a while we'll get something. For example, I actually have it right next to me over here. I've got the Cosmic Edition SpongeBob box set, the collector's edition for their video game.
What?
I saw like I'm sorry your viewers won't be able to see it, but from the Cosmic Shake game, look at that.
Oh, nice.
And it comes with like a SpongeBob Patrick statue, and there's like a big Patrick balloon in it and stuff. Yeah, it's really, really awesome. So every once in a while we'll get something like that I'll be like, oh, no, I need one of those. But in general, the manufacturing side is very much siloed away from the PureArts.com licensing side. So
if I was to ask you how long it takes from sort of concept to actually molding and producing, would you have an idea of that though?
Oh, absolutely. That I'm fully aware of all that side. And actually the answer is it is all over the place. Oftentimes the longest part will be the licensing negotiation. So getting the licensing established, getting a concept realized and a concept approved, and then all the little milestones in between that require licensing approval. Some are very quick. Some are definitely not. So, for example, Michael Jackson's estate is run by people that are very, very careful about how that brand is handled. It's very important that Michael Jackson is associated with very high quality. Everything Michael Jackson did had to be perfect. His concerts, his clothes, anything that had his brand, he wanted to be perfect. So it's the same thing with any kind of collectible for Michael Jackson. So the Smooth Criminal statue was well over 6 years in the making. It took 6 years to take that from idea to production. So yeah, it's a huge project. And Ug is a massive Michael Jackson fan. I am as well, but not as much as him. And he actually has several collectibles from Michael Jackson, including he is the owner of the wolf mask that he wore in Thriller. Yeah.
Wow.
So he has the original mask that he wore. So he's a massive Michael Jackson fan. So he really pushed that through. Now, typically, I would say probably 2 years is probably more realistic. Generally, it'll take 6 months to a year to come up with a concept and get it approved, build a prototype. And then once we get that approval, it's generally about a year to go from approved prototype to produced, shipped on a boat in the warehouse, shipping to people. That's pretty much a good time. So I would say more like probably 2 years is normal. 6 years is extreme, but I would go with probably about 2 years.
Wow, fascinating. And then, there's the time, obviously, you got to get it out to market and promote it and everything like that. So I guess that can be, by the time it even gets into a collector's hand, can be like 3 years almost.
Well, this is it. And this is why it's important that we work very closely with our partners, because we can't, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what's coming. Who knows what Nintendo's going to release or the Sony's going to release or what movies are going to come out in a couple of years. So it's important that we work with our partners so they give us a heads up as soon as possible so we can start working on things. So when you see us release a game, release a piece that coincides with the game. So let's say Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Yeah,
that's because Ubisoft and PureArts worked on this a year, 2 years ago, and that's why we were able to get it to a point where we launch it simultaneously. Otherwise, we have to be more reactive. So, like Cyberpunk, for example, we knew Cyberpunk was coming out 2 years before most people even heard about it. So, that's what makes it tough. But at the same time, it can also make it difficult to predict how something is going to go. So let's say we're working on a new license. So we've got a new product that's coming out for a new game that should be big, but the game implodes. It's an epic failure. And now we have 1,500 statues that we have to sell that nobody wants, right? So it's an interesting challenge. It's a very interesting challenge, actually. Personally, I'm all about the movie license. I'm a big pop culture guy. I love movie licenses. I'm not a huge gamer, not anymore. But but the gaming side is definitely our niche. That's what we're known for. We're known, especially for Assassin's Creed. We have an amazing, amazing client base that knows us for Assassin's Creed, and they are like the most dedicated fans of PureArts. It's absolutely unbelievable. When we go to shows, they show up in their cosplay. They're so supportive. It's just great.
Well, I actually, because I'm also similar to you, massive pop culture fan, more to do with like movies and things like that, but not as much of a gamer. Yeah,
I used to game. Sorry, I'm taking a swig of my vodka here. I used to be a big gamer, in the early stages of online gaming, but as once you become a parent and everything else, it became pretty tough for me to game. And I spend most of my free time, I spend it fishing now. So I am a little obsessed with fishing, but I do game. I still play some games with my daughter when she comes over and hangs out. We do some gaming, but I've got like an old PS3 and we play. We'll play some Tomb Raider and we'll play some war games on there. We'll play some Star Wars stuff. We'll play some Mortal Kombat, and we'll some easy 2-player games. Nothing crazy.
Nice. Let's go into the movie side of it then. Is there like a white whale in terms of movies or characters that you guys are currently hoping to one day make a collectible of?
There is for me. Well, okay, for me, obviously it's Predator and Aliens. I would love to do Predator and Alien stuff. It is my, that is my absolute passion is, Terminator, Alien, Predator. That's my bread and butter. So I would love to be able to get my hands on those licenses. Unfortunately, we do not have a Disney license, so that's why we're not able to produce those kind of statues. Same thing with Star Wars, same thing with Marvel. We can't touch it because it's a Disney license and we just don't have it. But that, for me, that is most definitely my white whale, for sure.
And what about also when I spoke about, like, obviously going out and marketing these, your role within PureArts is that you are the marketing and sales director, which means that you actually have to go out and travel a lot. You mentioned that the London, I think, Comic-Con is coming up.
That's right.
In just a couple of weeks, and you're going to be heading out for that.
Yep.
What's that schedule like, traveling out and doing these conventions?
It is honestly, it's probably one of the most exhausting things that I've ever done. So I used to be in business development in the gaming industry prior to working for PureArts. So I've been doing shows for many, many, many years. However, in business development, you tend to be sitting down most of the day. So you schedule meetings at these B2B shows and you sit down. It's a completely different story at Comic-Con and at Gamescom. It is, you're standing the entire day. There is actually a photo that was posted on our private Facebook group for PureArts collectors where I am literally grimacing in pain on the ground with my back completely locked in. And people had a great time. They were photoshopping it, all kinds of ridiculous poses. It was pretty funny. But it's absolutely exhausting. And I try to really focus on just sleeping, eating, and taking care of myself and making sure to stick with my routine. In the B2B sector, in business dev, you go to a lot of parties, you go to a lot of like after parties and things like that. I do not do that. I do not do that at these shows because it's too exhausting. I do, however, absolutely love meeting our collectors. It is so much fun because I do hang out on a lot of us do actually at PureArts. We hang out on our PureArts collector group on Facebook. So we talk to everyone. Yeah. And it's just so much fun meeting everyone in person. It's a blast. I just absolutely live for it. So it is really fun, but the shows are exhausting. So typically, let's say for Gamescom, that's a big one. Gamescom is a beast because I think it's like 5 days long. So
it's in Europe, right?
That's in Europe. It's in Germany. It's in Cologne.
Yeah.
And that's towards the end of August. So that's a big show. It's like 300,000 people. So it's a pretty big show. We will typically fly out 2 days before setup. So you fly out at night at 11 o'clock at night and you land at around, I don't know, let's say 8 in the morning. And that's kind of like I need to survive this day to make it kind of thing. So you try and stay up all day and then go to sleep at whatever local time, European time, go to bed. The next day we get up and that'll be setup day. So then we'll typically go ahead and set up, get everything going, shoot some content. Maybe I'll do a booth tour if I can live stream. And then the next day, the show starts. So then you've got 5 days of shows. Then you do the breakdown that night. The next day, you finish your breakdown, and then you fly out after that. So it's about 8 days. It's about 8 days. But I can tell you, my feet are in pain like I have never known in my life. It's tough. It's tough for sure. You got to kind of just keep your wits about you and. But it's really, I feed off the energy from the people. I just absolutely love meeting everybody. I love doing sales. I love talking about PureArts. I love talking about collecting. It's great. I love it. I love the shows, but I can tell you when it's over, I am definitely ready to go home.
And so you're involved in that setup and takedown as well of the booths.
Oh yeah, we do it all.
Yeah, because that's actually something I have a little bit of knowledge on because my best mate, who I've spoken about on the podcast before, he's a massive Lord of the Rings collector. He actually got involved just by chance by going to Supernova, which is a convention here in Australia. It's like a mini Comic-Con that tours around Australia, and he was going to the Weta workshop all the time and talking to the guys there because he's a massive Lord of the Rings fan and he was collecting all their statues. So he was there talking with them, talking about statues, talking to the artists, getting things signed. And eventually they asked him to come and help, because they needed an extra pair of hands. And so he got involved doing the setup and takedown and got the inside track and eventually went to New Zealand on a holiday, and they gave him a tour behind the scenes of the workshop offices and everything. So that was really cool. But he's told me about how grueling it can be, that especially because you've got certain times to load in, and at some places as well, and it can be really.
Well, Gamescom,
it's go. What, like as soon as you do it.
Oh yeah, it's good. Gamescom last year was. I learned some valuable lessons at Gamescom last year. So I made the mistake of booking my flight out the next morning of that the show ended. So we decided to tear down. And the thing is, we have to take everything down. We have to repack the prototypes, which takes forever. It takes forever. So we had to repack everything. Well, we finished at about, I would say, 2 a.m. I got to the hotel at 3 a.m, packed my bag, and it was at the airport by 5 a.m. And by the time I landed back in North America, I had a full-blown cold. Like I stayed in bed for like 3 days. It was brutal. Yeah, it was brutal. But there's definitely a couple of this is the other thing too, is some of the most amazing experiences I've ever had in my professional life were at conventions. And when I was younger, when I first started collecting, the mecca of collectibles, of pop culture collecting, would be San Diego Comic-Con. SDCC in North America is huge, right? So my dream was to always go to San Diego Comic-Con. And the highlight of that visit would be to go and see the amazing Sideshow Collectibles booth. That, for me, was like, I wanted to go to San Diego Comic-Con just to go see the Sideshow booth, because everyone knows it is the king of booths. And so finally, last year, we had the opportunity to display our PureArts collectibles at San Diego Comic-Con, and guess where? In the middle of the Sideshow booth. Nice. So we had our own setup in the Sideshow booth, and I got to hang out with Sideshow for the whole weekend and talk all shop with them. I got to geek over all their stuff that they had, and there were a couple other companies as well, like Iron Studios was there and Prime One and stuff. I got to meet all them, and it was just the coolest thing. It was just really amazing to finally. And I was like, this is my little dream when I was a kid, kind of thing. Well, I wasn't like really a kid, but collectibles, I guess, keep us young. Exactly. And the other one was we did Montreal Comic-Con. So Montreal Comic-Con is coming up. We did that last year. And last year, one of the things that we were featuring were the T1000 art masks that we have. So we have a painted T1000, right, with Robert Patrick, and he's got his finger and everything. And the other one is all chrome. Yes, and Robert Patrick was at Comic-Con. He was there at Montreal Comic-Con. So we actually picked them up and brought them over to his booth, where he was signing autographs, and he freaked out. He just pushed everyone aside, and he's like, oh, these are amazing. And he introduced them. We introduced ourselves to him, and he had a great time. And then he had a panel. So he was going up on stage to do a panel. Well, he asked that we bring the statues and put them next to him on pedestals for his panel. Nice. So we're like, okay, so already I'm freaking out. I'm like, this is crazy. So we go and bring them. Well, Robert Patrick's assistant comes up to us. He says, guys, would you mind? Robert Patrick wants to bring you on stage during his panel. And we're like, you have got to be joking me. Well, sure enough, he comes in. The first thing he does is invite us up on the stage, and he talks to us and talks about the collectibles in front of 2,000 people. And it was just, he was asking us questions. We were making jokes, and he went and autographed both of them on the forehead. He put them on the forehead. Oh, nice. I mean, I was freaking out. I needed like a good hug and a cry after. I was so amped up. I was like, my heart was going a million, because I'm such a Terminator fan. I'm such a Robert Patrick fan. And God bless that man. He is an absolute sweetheart. And it was one of the most amazing things ever. So yeah, well, I love conventions.
I have to ask, the signed versions, where are they?
They are in our studio in the Old Port in Montreal. Please don't break in and steal them. Actually, the funny part is we brought them back to our booth and we put them there. And we had a very, very persistent person who kept asking to buy it. And he was hovering, and we had to get one of our staff to go and sit next to it. And we said, like, do not move. Do not let anybody touch the statue. Yeah, it was a little spooky. Like, I don't know. We were waiting for him to come back with like a trench coat or something and hide it in there. And the thing is, you got to be careful, because some people, 99.9% of people at conventions understand that it's on a pedestal. It's a prototype. You don't touch. We actually had one guy come in, and he wanted to see how much it weighed. So he just grabbed the head and lifted it and snapped it off the base about two hours before we were bringing it on the stage. And we were like, "Are you joking me, buddy?" And it was the only prototype we had. Yeah, it was crazy. Anyway, it's okay. We glued it back together, and it was all right. The guy was very remorseful. Like, we're like, "Listen, do not touch stuff at conventions." He's like, "Well, you need a sign." I'm like, "It's pretty obvious these are prototypes you shouldn't be touching." Anyway, it was all right. But yeah, it was amazing. And yeah, they're at the office, and I really, really want them bad. But no,
that's why I was asking. Did one of them just happen to make it back to your place and is on display somewhere?
And not a word of a lie, Robert Patrick ordered a set. He bought a set.
Oh, nice.
So he has a huge motorcycle. Maybe a lot of people probably don't know this. He actually is a co-owner of a huge Harley Davidson motorcycle shop in Santa Clarita, California. And in there's like a huge display case with all kinds of movie memorabilia. And he wanted a couple to put in there, so we sent them over to him. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I was going to say, like, when Robert Patrick invites you on stage during a comic convention to talk about your statue, I think you just send him a statue, right? Like, you don't make him pre-order a statue.
No, he actually pre-ordered it. He legitimately pre-ordered it, and I can't remember how, but we figured out it was. I think because he's very supportive of our stuff, and he doesn't have to do squat to support this, right? It's not in his mandate whatsoever. He constantly reposts anything that we post about the T1000, and he posted something like, "I've got mine on order," and we're like. And I go to the customer service team. I'm like, "What do you mean he's got one on order? What are you talking about?" So we go looking in, and there's nothing under Robert Patrick. So we're like, "Well, we don't know." So I found an order that was going like near where he lives, and we contacted the person that made the purchase. And sure enough, it was them. And we're like, no. We refunded them. We were like, we'll send you.
That's what I meant. That's what I meant. Like, you don't make him pay for that.
Like, no. Especially he's been so supportive. And I am debating. I don't know if I want to say this part. You might have to delete this part. But I am debating because we like email him. Like we're buds now. I am debating sending him a set that he would autograph for me personally. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if I can get away with that one.
Okay. Well, I mean, hey, if you've got the inside track, why wouldn't you? I'm a big believer. Right? If you don't ask, you don't get.
I say the same thing all the time. You don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah, and it would be remiss of me then not to talk about a collectible that you guys make that I'm a huge fan of, and I'm eventually going to be adding to my collection, I'm sure. The Batman cowl. So
yes,
tell me about the Batman cowl, because this is, as I said at the start of the podcast, that's how I found you guys, was through seeing this thing, and amazing, and finding out that it was actually sculpted off Michael Keaton's actual cowl from the movie.
Correct.
Yes. Collection was
part of Oog's secret collection. Yep.
Yeah, was fascinating for me. So tell me about what went into producing that, and also you guys have essentially made it in a way that it won't deteriorate the same way that the original cowl did as well.
Correct. So as you said, Oog is the proud owner of the original Michael Keaton Batman suit. So he actually does, not only is it the cowl, he has the full thing. So he's got the whole cowl, the down part, he's got the cape, he's got everything. Nice. So he acquired it from a celebrity auction many years ago, and it's been sitting at his place, falling apart since, I guess. And of course, now anything that old, that latex, it's breaking down. Like, it's breaking down severely. Yep. So what we did is we created a 3D scan of the cowl itself. So we took a 3D scan of the cowl, and you can actually go on our website on PureArts.com, and I believe somewhere in the photo gallery it shows kind of like the different steps. So once we had the 3D scan, it's kind of like the cowl is collapsing. Like, he's kind of like, he's collapsing. His ears are kind of curved inwards. The mouth is sort of falling down. So
a bit sad.
Then we went ahead. Yeah. So we went ahead and corrected it in ZBrush or whatever tools that those wizards at the 3D shop do. They made their magic happen, and they straightened everything out and fixed it all up so that we actually had a composite of the original mask. So 3D scan of the mask, corrected the curves. So this is really as close as you could possibly get to a screen used edition, because it's not just eyeballed, it's literally a 3D scan of the real thing.
Wow.
Once we had that, the challenge became, what do we make it out of? Because it was not a decision right away. Let's make it out of resin. Let's make it out of latex. Let's make it out of that. We knew we wanted it to have the feel of the cowl. We knew we wanted it to be flexible, bendy, but we didn't want it to fall apart like latex does. So we spent months working on a product that could be made, like literally chemists worked on this to create a material that would feel like a rubber or like a latex, but not break down like latex does. 10, 15 years, latex is just literally completely falling apart. The degradation is horrible. Yeah. So we came up with a poly hybrid based material. So poly is, it's the same base chemical that's used to create resin, right? Polyresin.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and it's used for vinyl as well, like, vinyl siding on a house. It's made out of the same stuff. So we created a compound that's poly and some other materials that allow it to be flexible. And the best way I could describe it is it feels exactly like a car tire in terms of its texture, in terms of its rigidity, its flexibility. It feels exactly like a car tire. So this was the very first prototype we got. In fact, the product photos on our website are resin. It was a resin one. And when we received it, of course, when you set it down, there's the whole cowl section with the little pointy tips. Like 3 of them broke the second we took it out and put it down. It was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. So we were still working on this poly hybrid material to create the mask. So it was really, really intense. So anyway, we survived. We got the whole photo shoot out there, and we still didn't get a chance to feel what this would be like. And then we went to, I can't remember, it was Gamescom. We went to a show. We finally had the prototype ready. We got the prototype. I can tell you it is the most impressive thing I've ever seen. It really is. It feels exactly like what you would think that cowl would feel like. It's not too floppy. It's not hard like resin. It's just a perfect blend of flexibility, but also rigid to keep its shape. The thing is, it doesn't even require any kind of external structure. Like, it doesn't need to sit on something to keep its shape. It will forever keep its shape. You can move it a little bit and it'll come back. You can't squish it completely. Like, if you were to sit on it, let's say, and completely compress it, it might stay a bit compressed. It'll pop back out, but it might stay a bit compressed. But it will retain its shape forever. And so anyway, we get the prototype, and I'm freaking out. I'm like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Like, it's just such a revolutionary thing in collectibles. And then we got then I got the production sample. So I actually just reviewed the production sample, I would say, a week ago. We got it in, and it's stunning. And what's really cool about this, well, not really cool. It's really cool for the users, but not for the customers, but it's not really cool for the production side, is that unlike resin, this comes out black and textured from the mold. It's not painted. You can't fix it. It needs to come out perfect right out of the mold. So if it comes out of the mold and you've got air bubbles, when you've got resin, you can fill in those air bubbles, Dremel it down, and boom, you're Bob's your uncle, you're fine. Yep. But with this, if it doesn't come out of the mold perfect, it goes in the garbage. So there's a lot of pressure to make these perfect. And the one that I got was perfect. The texture is perfect. The shape, everything about it was amazing. And I was floored. And I don't care. I get it. I work for PureArts. I'm biased, but I swear I could hand this to a Batman fan, and I guarantee you will be impressed with this, because it really is beautifully, beautifully done.
Well, Dan, I just have to say, I don't actually have a sponsor for the podcast, but if I was, I'm sure I would accept payment in Cowls for that sponsor as well.
Yeah,
if they wanted to sponsor the podcast for next year.
We should have probably talked about that before I came on, I guess.
This is not sponsored, though. I did ask you guys to come on, and yeah, definitely. It's so impressive. And then you've got the others as a follow up to that you made, the Michelle Pfeiffer cowl with the whip.
Correct. So we've got the Catwoman, and actually, it's sort of funny that the exclusive edition that's sold on PureArts.com is the cat clock, right, from the mall.
Yeah. Yes.
But originally we were going to make the replica of her taser. It was going to be like Catwoman's taser.
Yes.
But then, so we had an incident with so we did the T800 busts, okay? So the T800 art mask that we did, which is the T800 endoskeleton. And the exclusive edition was a replica of the M409 grenade that Arnold uses. You know, he keeps putting in the grenade to try and blow up the T1000.
I think I know where this is going.
Customs, especially in Australia, did not appreciate that.
I would imagine so.
Yeah. So they didn't. So, and it was, we also tried to, a couple of Middle Eastern countries also blocked it and destroyed the statue. So when we came up with the taser, I was actually the one that flagged it to the production team and said, guys, you may not want to do the taser. So yeah, because for sure, because tasers are illegal in so many places, right? So yeah. So the taser was not had, and we had the clock. So we do have the Catwoman mask, which is also made out of that same material, but it's finished so it's like a shiny latex. So it looks like her mask, right? Because it was sort of like that leather latex look that she had. That was very shiny and glossy. Well, the mask has that, but it's the same material that was used for Batman. So same thing, nice flexibility, but still not floppy, right? Which is super important because I have seen some Batman cowl replicas that have been licensed replicas, but they're super floppy. Like the ears are all bendy and stuff. Like it's weird. It almost feels like Jello. So we didn't want that. And then of course, after that, we did the Penguin art mask, which is really a premium piece for us. It's the first time we do silicone skin with real punched hair, well, synthetic hair, but individually punched hair. And that's more of a premium piece because we knew not everyone's going to want a penguin. It's not as popular as a Batman or a Catwoman. So we wanted to make this special. And it is special to the point that it is super creepy. Like there's a couple of people at the office. They don't even want to go to the office. So true story. We had a gentleman contact us. We won't name any names. We did have a gentleman contact our support team, and he asked all kinds of questions about the Penguin. He wanted to know what it was made out of, what it looked like, what it came with. That he had tons of questions. And he pulls the trigger. He goes ahead and buys it. So we're like, oh, cool. He ended up buying the Penguin. That's awesome. The next day, he contacts us. Sorry, guys, I need to do a refund. I need to cancel my order. So we hit him up. Like, why are you canceling yours? His girlfriend got mad and said, it is too creepy. I do not want it in the house. I was like, you got to be joking me. He's dead serious. Like, oh, refund him. What are you going to do? So he canceled his order because it was too creepy. So I'm looking forward to having it on my nightstand personally.
And I said this before we recorded, that was probably one that I wasn't going to add to the collection at this point because of the fact that I thought it was a bit creepy. But it's also like, I think if I had more space, I think I probably would want all three of them.
Oh, it's amazing. And what's cool about this is it comes with all kinds of extra goodies. So you get his top hat. He's got his cigarette, the long cigarette holder. He's got his monocle. And the exclusive edition comes with the replica of his little duck boat vehicle thing. So it's a really impressive collectible, but it's creepy. Like the ears are floppy like a human ear, and the nose moves and stuff. Like he's pretty, and like the lips move and like the lips move up. So when you put the cigarette, his teeth kind of open. Like it kind of feels like you're touching a dead body. But it is amazing. It's a beautiful. I will not hesitate to have this in my collection. I can tell you that right now.
Well, Dan, I think that's also a beautiful segue. Talking about your collection, because I am the collector of collectors, and it would be again remiss of me not to discuss the fact that you are a collector. And once upon a time, you ran your own YouTube channel called Predator.
I did.
Tell people about that.
That's right. Well, for some reason, I became the authority on all things Predator collectibles. I started Predator collecting, I want to say in the late 90s. And I started off with simple stuff like McFarlane goodies, little McFarlane toys. And it kind of just grew out of control. And what happened was I started getting into garage kits. I started getting into premium collectibles. And before I knew it, I had over 2,500 Predator collectibles in my house.
Wow.
I had, and it turned out that I had the biggest Predator collection in North America, actually. So what was happening was people were starting to contact me asking where to acquire rare Predator kits, collectibles, things like that. And one of my friends said, like, why are you giving this information away free? Why don't you start a store and a channel and stuff? And so I was already running the YouTube channel. I had Predator stuff where I would review. I had a lot more hair then too. And I would review all kinds of Predator collectibles. Yeah, right. And then I started running a store. So I actually had a store called PredatorStuff.com, and I used to sell collectibles. I was a Sideshow affiliate, and it was all things Predator. So yeah, I was a huge, huge Predator collector. I had everything. And what I used to do is I used to run a catalog online where I cataloged every Predator collectible that existed. Licensed, unlicensed, you name it. One-of-a-kind pieces. I also tried to keep track of where movie props were, because most of the movie props and molds and things were destroyed. They used to just throw them in the bin or light them on fire, right? They didn't bring them back from Puerto Vallarta. They just burned everything. So it was, it was really cool. And I also became sort of an authority on making sure things were movie accurate. So a lot of people would ask me, hey, how movie accurate is this? So that was also a big thing. So I love doing that. And unfortunately, in 2009, the magic of divorce forced me to sell my collection. I had to actually get rid of the collection. So yeah, I sold, it broke my heart because I did have some, well, actually most of mine were one of a kind. I had a very, I'm getting upset just thinking about it. I had so many one of a kind items, and it's actually what stopped me from collecting, like, again, to get back into the Predator collectibles and things, because I know I'll never get those things back. So I just, I don't even start. And I had, and I'm familiar with, a lot of great artists out there, Eric Sosa and all these guys, right? And I had individual pieces from them, and I had a beautiful Empire Strikes Back Yoda. I had a full-size Yoda statue made by Howard Senft. And Howard is an incredible artist. If you don't know Howard Senft, you need to go check him out. Senft is his last name. This guy is off the chain. And he made a few Empire Strike Back Yoda, and he actually painted it and made it for me. And again, that was sold. Never get that back. I had all of the original Sideshow busts, all the original Sideshow Terminator busts, Predator busts, all that now sell for like $10,000 or whatever craziness. I had every single original Hot Toy Predator. I mean, you name it, I had it. So that's long gone. Now, I stopped collecting for quite a while, but stayed in touch with the community, right? Obviously you can never fully get out of it. And now I sort of, I've started getting back into it. In fact, I've got Animus Altair back here. One of our Assassin's Creed pieces. So what I'm doing is I'm assembling my, I guess it's like my misfits of PureArts. So basically, we do get returns of damaged items sometimes, especially if they're local, because we'll use them as demonstrators. We'll fix them up, use them as store demos or something like that. And basically, I get ones that are broken and I repair them, and that's it. So I have a PureArts collection going. Now, I just moved, and eventually, behind me, this will become giant display cases everywhere. I'm going to make a crazy collecting room in here, so I'm looking very forward to it. And then I will have all kinds of stuff to show off. One thing I wanted to start collecting that I didn't touch was Star Wars. I didn't touch Star Wars because imagine Predator. Predator's a pretty niche collection, right? But I still had 2,500 pieces of Predator. Imagine if I started collecting Star Wars, what's going to happen? Because I'm a completist. It would be a nightmare. So I never got into Star Wars. But I noticed you have a Grogu behind you, and I have a fairly extensive Grogu collection. I have tons of Grogu stuff.
Yeah.
So, and I also have a beautiful Star Wars epoxy table that I recently purchased. So I do have all kinds of goodies that I'm looking forward to having. Yeah, and of course I've always got a little Predator. There's one of my little Predators here. This is something my brother gave me. I got another Predator.
I was going to ask, when you mentioned obviously selling off the collection, was there an item that you were like, I can't sell this, and I was there like one that you kept?
No, not really. I pretty much sold everything. Yeah, I had a couple of I don't even know what they are. I had a couple of little things, but no, I sold pretty much everything. Yeah, I sold everything. And I mean, like it hurts. And I mean, there's things that I got, like I have things from artists that have passed away that we'll never get back. But, and I've got Darth Vader here. Darth Vader guards all of my show passes. I know your viewers can't see it, but I got my Vader here.
That's cool. So it's like a 24 or it's a half scale. It's a half scale that was sold at a local store called Canadian. I feel like he's about to fall on me.
It's
So it's a
from a
24
local
inches,
store called,
but it's bigger.
yeah, it's from Canadian Tire. It's a store it's a store chain that's all over Canada. It's like they sell tools and knickknacks and things, and they had it. I think it cost like $30, and his hand is out, and I have a Hugh Hefner replica pipe that goes in his hand. So yeah, that's it. And I also have collectibles from artists that we've worked with. So this is a bear brick that was signed by an artist that we've worked with on some of our designer toys. We've worked with guys like.
Give me 2 seconons, actually.
Sure.
What are you talking about bear brick?
You got to sket one piece.
One of the here we go. One of the newest pieces in my collection, actually, that I just got this year.
Oh, nice!
is the Hush Batman bear brick, and I was a bit, when I first saw bear brick, I was like, I'm not sold on them. Like when I saw them, like the pictures of them online, but once I saw that in person, I was like, all right, I've got to have it. I've got to have that.
Well, I wanted one. Well, because we did we have an art toy. I don't know where they are. No, I don't have it here. So we have art toys that are called based on a character from an artist named Daytoner, and it's called Master Nine Eyes or M9E. So we actually have a huge. There's got to be about 20 different varieties at this point. There's exclusive editions that stores have done, and we do artist collaborations. And we did one with Sket One. And while we were at Designer Con in California, Sket One was at our booth signing, and he had also a bear brick that he was launching in his typical style. So I grabbed one and I had him autograph the box, and inside he autographed the bear brick for me. So this is more of an homage to the artist. I just thought it was cool to have something from the artist rather than bear brick itself.
That is cool.
Yeah. But people go crazy for bear brick. If you've ever been to a show where there's a bear brick booth, mama, they go nuts for that. There's massive lineups for it. It's crazy.
Well, actually, you talk about like all those conventions and things, and that you were at, obviously the sideshow last year. And anyone who listens to the podcast may have heard me lament the fact that I did have tickets to go to last year's San Diego Comic-Con, which were rollover tickets from the 2021, but obviously with the pandemic and everything. I wasn't able to actually make it, so I'm still hoping to make it one day and see that convention and see those people going crazy at those stands as well.
Well, you should come to Montreal Comic-Con. It'll be a lot cheaper than going to California.
Well, actually, my next trip is to Japan at the end of this year, and then I was talking to my girlfriend about the fact that Star Wars Celebration is going to be in Japan in 2025, and so that we should start planning now for going back to Japan so we can do that one as well.
Yeah, this is the thing too. It's very tough to decide. So many people are asking us to come to different shows, right? They're like, come here, come there. It's like, sorry guys, we can't. We don't have that kind of budget. It's not, you're not making a profit when you go to a show, right? At least not in the short term. But we're building awareness, right? And we're there to meet people, and we just love doing the shows. But we can't be everywhere, so we try and do, a couple in the States, one in Canada, a couple in Europe. We try and go to different places. We might do something in Singapore this year, but we try and do different ones. Maybe we'll do one in Australia. Do you have any shows that are like 200,000 people?
I mean, if you add them together, maybe like the Supernovas will probably pull 200,000. I think.
Okay, well, what's the biggest show in Australia?
Well, it would be Supernova. I think that there's also Oz Comic Con. But I believe like Supernova, because Supernova's a touring one that goes to the major cities around Australia.
Okay, got it.
And they would have tens of thousands of people go through, I would say, over a weekend, like for sure. And that's where like Weta Workshop and a lot of their places, Pop Culture in Australia, who I think they're the licensed distributor for PureArts. That's where I've seen the mask advertised here in Australia.
Oh, it could be. Yeah. And this is the thing, it's been a challenge. Unfortunately for you guys in Australia, boy, does it suck to ship over there.
Mm-hmm.
It's
tell me about
the
it.
shipping is a huge challenge. One of the things I would love to work on actually is opening a warehouse in Australia where we can container ship stuff to Australia and just ship locally, domestically. And that way you guys would actually have realistic prices. So instead of an anime statue costing $500, it would just cost, $80 or whatever it is. It's something we're working on. It's something I'd love to establish. It's just, we're not sure how, will the sales be high enough to warrant opening a warehouse? Or, we don't open a warehouse. We rent space in a warehouse, but it is something we're going to be looking at, because believe me, I've spoken to many people from Australia that love our stuff, but unfortunately the pricing, the shipping it doesn't even matter. The shipping from China, Europe, because we have warehouses in Europe, Canada, US, UK, and why am I missing? China, Europe, UK, and Canada, US. And it doesn't matter where we ship from. It's pretty much always going to be $500 or $600 for a big box. It's just crazy. So who knows? Maybe we can open something in Australia. If any of your listeners have the inroads into a great warehousing facility in Australia, feel free to hit me up.
Oh no, well, definitely. I think if someone's listening that knows, definitely reach out to Dan. I know, like, just shipping. It's not in, because I'm currently, as I said to you earlier, the Batcave's in flux as I've been redesigning the space and moving everything around. So currently I have an XM Studios piece, Batman piece, which cost a lot of money to bring from Singapore. That was around $600 Australian to ship from there as well. So I feel the pain there. And if you could do that and have somewhere in Australia, that would be fantastic. But at the same time, because we are an island continent, you've still got to ship here regardless. Like, you've still got to get the stuff here regardless.
Well, but we can do it with a container, right? We do it via boat with a container. It's not so bad. It's not as bad. But the problem is I need to have enough orders to warrant that I ship an entire container, right? Like that's kind of the challenge. So I don't know if there's, we have enough orders just from the UK that we have containers that go to the UK. So I'm sure we could do it in Australia. It's just, we need to kind of shop around the warehousing situation and see what we can come up with, because I feel like there's potential for it. I think we could do it, because, like I said, I'm sure there's got to be, for every 100 people that come to our store and put something in their cart, probably 95 say no way when they get to the shipping part, right? Mm-hmm. It's so expensive. But unfortunately, it's not, it's not us. We're not making money on the shipping. It's just literally what it costs.
That's right.
And it's nuts. It's nuts.
Well, Dan, I've taken around an hour of your time now chatting to you, so thank you very much. Before I wrap up, let people know, where can they find PureArts, as well as obviously at these conventions that we were talking about, but if people want to come and actually purchase and find the statues and find the different collectibles that you guys manufacture, where do they go?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So you just come to purearts.com, www.purearts.com, and you can pretty much find everything that's on there. And of course, almost all the statues we sell, they're all going to have a exclusive edition. So if you buy from us directly, you get like an extra little goodie in there. You can also come and join us on all our social media networks. If you just go on Instagram, Facebook, anything, you can just look up PureArts and we'll come up. We've also got TikTok, and we do a lot of Twitch streams. So every Wednesday I do a lunch with Dan. So if you go on Twitch / I believe it's just /PureArts, we do a little, I just basically take my lunch hour and I just talk to people. We talk about collectibles. We look at game trailers. We look at the competition. We talk about scandals, whatever comes up. So we do that every Wednesday. And cool. We launch a new product about once a month, and we also do a live stream from the studio with the product in hand, and we do close-ups. We have fun with that. So we do that. We do unboxings on YouTube. So if you check out PureArts on YouTube, we do unboxings, product reviews, product trailers, things like that. Sometimes we do some behind-the-scenes things as well. So we do a lot of media. So and then of course, if you want to join, if you are a PureArts collector or you want to start collecting, you want to ask some questions, we invite everyone to go on Facebook and look up the PureArts Collectors group. So if you just look up PureArts Collectors, it's our private group. It's about, I want to say it's like 8,000 members or something. And we, a lot of the staff interact with people as well. And we just talk and show off collectibles, do customs. Sometimes somebody will post something that broke and ask how to fix it, things like that. So yeah, absolutely. Just check out PureArts on Facebook and come and hang out with us.
I love that. I love that you geeks hanging out with the geeks, and just it's really good to actually see that people are not just doing it as a job, but you're passionate about what you do as well.
It's actually pretty funny. So I'm on a bunch of different collecting groups. So I'm on the Terminator collecting group. I'm on a bunch of Assassin's Creed groups. I've been, well, obviously before I was ever with PureArts, I was already part of Sideshow Freaks and Collector Freaks and the Hunter's Lair, which is actually, I was the owner operator of the Hunter's Lair for a brief period. So, but now people see me as like PureArts Dan. So what'll happen is somebody will buy something from us, like a Terminator piece, and they post it on their group, and I'll be like, "Oh, cool! Thanks for supporting our product. I'm glad that you love it." And they'll be like, "Oh my God, is this Dan from PureArts? This is so cool!" But no, yeah, I was a collector way before I worked in the industry, so yeah, no, I love it.
Well, PureArts Dan, thank you for being on the show. I've had a really great time chatting to you. And yeah, as I said, if you're wanting to sponsor, I do accept payment in cows. But it's been a pleasure chatting to you.
We'll talk about our sponsorship agreement. But yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I always look for an excuse to talk to people. And of course, guys, if anybody's in the UK, we've got UK London Comic Con. Depending on when you air this, we do have London Comic Con coming up very soon at the end of May. I think it's like May 26th, 27th, 28th. Then we've got Montreal Comic Con. Then we've got Gamescom coming up, and then we've got New York Comic Con, and we've got LA Comic Con. So if you're in any of those areas, you want to come and check us out, come and hang out with us. I will be there.
Well, this will be going out very shortly. So yeah, thank you, Dan, and enjoy your fishing trip tomorrow as well.
Thank you very, very much. Again, thank you so much for hosting me. And hopefully, tomorrow's going to be a good day. The weather's looking good. I'm going to go back outside now and start tying up my fishing rods and get ready to go.
If you like the episode, please consider following or subscribing wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also join me on Instagram at Collecting Heroes, where you can see photos of the collections of people that I'm talking to, as well as some of my own.